Hey everyone, I just got back from dinner. I'm here in New York. As you can see, I'm not in my house. If you were in the members only live earlier today, you probably heard a little more about that. And if you are a member of this channel and you haven't seen it yet, you're welcome to go to the member tab and watch after this. But I've been here for a little under a week now, but I've been away from like YouTube and mostly away from the internet in general, from posting and stuff like that, at least for probably like a week and a half or close to it. I don't know. It was just, I got really busy for the week since my last stream at home with work and then, family stuff and all that jazz. And then, since I got out here, I came out here because when I booked for trial, it was supposed to be 6 weeks, but I booked the first week at a much lower rate than I would normally have to pay. But the problem was you couldn't get a refund. Like, you had to pay up front. You couldn't get a refund after May 2nd. And then they settled on May 4th. So I'd already paid for the hotel. And it was like I was kind of out the money anyways. And I thought, I could come out here and do some stuff at night and work during the day, or I would just be out the money. So I decided to come out here, and I've been working, mostly spending my time in here working from 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 or whatever, depending on the day. And then at night I get to go, do some other stuff. I did take a half day on Monday to do something cool, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute. But since, the trial obviously didn't move forward, the Lively case settled, I said, I'll come back out here for the Jones case and I'll save the fundraiser money for that. And in order to do that, that means I could not take my PTO. So while I'm here, I am doing my regular day job. So that's why I haven't been around as much, because I have to work. And then when I'm not working, it's like I came all the way out here, so I wanted to make sure that I was getting out of the room and actually like doing some stuff at night and still like going to bed at a decent hour and all that. So did I see Blake at Fendi? Is that how you say it? Is it Fendi? The answer is no. No, and I don't want to see Blake. So I'm good without that. I am not, I know that like some people have been kind of not like aggressive, but just like kind of rude about this. I am not using your fundraiser money that you guys donated to go to dinner and shit like that. Like, I have a job, as I just mentioned, so I can buy my own dinner. I went up to the Tuesday, I went up to the Trade Center. I used to live here, but I still love doing that. I still love going to the top of the Trade Center. Tuesday, I went up there. It was like $40-$50. I can afford to go do some stuff at night. I am not using your donated funds to go sightseeing, okay? I know that some people were concerned about that. I did try to explain, like, time and time and time again, that I was saving the fundraiser money for the Jones case. That was the plan before this trial was canceled. And then if Stephanie Jones' case doesn't move forward after I go to the hearings and stuff like that, we'll donate the rest of the money to charity. So I just wanted to drop that out there, because I think some people still are, concerned that I'm just like taking all this money that people donated and just running away to go on vacation. I'm like, well, I'm here because I couldn't get my money back, but I'm paying for myself. Please don't worry about that. So I donated my funds specifically for you to go sightseeing. Awesome. Okay. Well, I'll keep that in mind. So I know you're joking about seeing Blake. No, I have not seen Blake. Thank God. Prickly Pear says the people worried about that probably didn't donate in the first place. You're probably right. It's mostly people that I can see have never commented on the channel before. So, you can take one guess where those people are probably coming from, but oh well. We've talked enough about that. Let's move on to something else. So Monday, I took a half day at work. So I did get to take like a half day off. And Prof. Joe Explains came out here to meet me. And we went to the Museum of Modern Art. She was able to get tickets. I think she was able to get free tickets. I can't remember how she did that. But she took me there. So she kind of helped me out with that, because I'd never been to a museum, even when I lived here. I've never been to one of the museums. And she took me there, and that was cool. And then at night, we went to this premiere. It was the US premiere of this movie called Cast Aside the Clouds. And it was a film about a Baha'i woman in Iran, in Tehran, who falls in love with a Muslim man, a doctor. And it shows how, in the beginning, it's kind of a love story between them, and it's kind of like a lighthearted thing. But then it shows how, some people have some pretty bigoted, prejudiced reactions to people with the Baha'i faith in Iran. One of the family members, I think the uncle, I don't want to give too much away in case people want to see it. The uncle of the man was, very confrontational about her faith and her family's faith. And then it shows how she was persecuted for her faith. It shows how she was basically taken hostage. They imprison you for some stupid, nonsensical reason, and then they basically try to get you to denounce your Baha'i faith, or they torture you. And usually, to my understanding, will kill you a lot of the time if you won't denounce the faith. So it was a look into kind of that dynamic and how things work for, how things have been for Baha'i people in Iran, which I had obviously had no experience with. That was the first time I've ever seen anything like that. And I think it was a really moving film. And I think that anyone who wants to see it while it's playing in the US, please do, because it was a really great movie. It had a lot of heart. Like I said, it started out as a love story, then it became, something a little more intense, and then but at the end, I won't give away the end. I want you guys to go see it yourself if you can. But let me pull up the website just so you know what I'm talking about here. Yeah, here we go. It's called Cast Aside the Clouds. Like I said, this was the New York premiere that I just went to. It's still in New York playing, I think next week is the 29th, right? Until June 4th. And then it's going to LA, Chicago, DC. And then I don't know if it'll be it's an independent film. I don't know if it'll be in theaters or if it'll be online after that, but hopefully you guys will all get a chance to watch it. I learned a lot from it. And then the cast and some of the people behind the film, the director, they went up on stage and talked a bit about it, answered some questions afterwards. And Anthony Azizi, one of the actors in the film, he played the father of the woman who was persecuted. He talked about how in his life when he was growing up, his uncles were imprisoned in Iran for their Baha'i faith, and they were tortured and they were killed. He talked about how that was an emotional experience for him, and how doing that film, being a part of that film, kind of gave him closure, which I thought was really beautiful. You don't see a lot of movies like that anymore. I feel like things have gotten really, don't get me wrong, I love a rom-com, even if it's a little formulaic, and I'll go watch superhero movies and stuff like that, but you don't see a lot of movies like that really pull at your heartstrings the way that it did, and at the same time teach you a lot about the world and how that works. So, yeah, if you guys get a chance to see it, you definitely should. But Joe and I got to go see that together, and I was hoping to see her again while I'm out here, but I guess I'll have to wait until August, because I will be out. If it's open to the public, I'll come out here in August for the next hearing in the Jones case. I don't know if it will be open to the public, so I'll have to find out, right? Okay, we've done that. So I've been seeing what's going on the internet in the last, I haven't been around so much here. I've been seeing what's going on the internet, but I haven't been commenting on it too much. I'm cutting out for you. Am I still cutting out, guys? Because I have a crappy microphone. It's my laptop mic, and I might have to try to fix it if it's messy. Maybe try refreshing. Otherwise, guys, in the comments, just let me know. Jessica Lisi, thank you for the $10 for mandatory fun. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I donated a little to use the money for whatever you want as far as I'm concerned. Oh, thank you very much. Just a few minutes behind. Good. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Let's see. So I've been seeing what's going on the internet, but I haven't been commenting much. Hey, Michelle. What's up? And I wanted to point out one thing that I saw today and explain why I'm not commenting as much. Okay, because this is the best example I can think of to explain where I'm kind of at mentally with this case coverage and all that, right? So here's this photo of Blake, right? And I see this photo of Blake on E! News, and I saw the post about the Fendi thing, and I saw the stuff from that Katie Joy from Without a Crystal Ball had reported on I guess they haven't paid their contractors at their home. I've not been paying close attention to this stuff, but I have been seeing all of it. And the reason that I'm not commenting on everything as it's happening can kind of all be explained in the context of this post right here. So here is a photo of Blake Lively, and you can see that like nobody in the, like, you can even see Roman right there, WTF amateur Photoshop. You can see nobody has anything nice to say about Blake Lively. I think I even commented, no thanks. And I did the one thing that I tell everyone not to do when you don't want to see something in your Instagram account, when you don't want to keep seeing somebody, which is to leave a comment, because then you're just going to see more of that in your feed. So I just went against my own advice. I just wrote no thanks on there, which was a mistake, because now she's just going to show up more in my feed. But I guess the reason I'm not like coming on social media and making videos about this is like, at some point in the last several months, I really like thought about everything that had happened and the way that I had gone about covering this and sharing my thoughts with people. And I realized how many times there were that I stressed myself out over stuff like this, when it's like, here's somebody I don't like doing something that I don't want to see, and I am coming onto the internet to give my attention to it on purpose. Does that make a lot of sense? I don't think so. So for me personally, I just kind of had to set a line where it's just like, you know what? I don't need to kind of comment on everything that Blake Lively or Ryan Reynolds do. I don't worry about their family dynamic. You know, I don't really care if they get divorced or not. It's just, I had to kind of set my own limits. I think everybody has different limits. And I think there are plenty of people who can just, you know, quickly get on a TikTok and say something funny or like quippy and be done with it. But for me, I have to put a lot of thought into these things. I have to think about what I want to say a lot. Otherwise, I'm just kind of screaming into the void. I'm not a natural the way that some people are. And so I was just giving way too much energy to this kind of stuff. And being frustrated with the amount of energy I was giving to that kind of stuff made me, I feel like, a lesser person, honestly. I look back at some of the stuff that I would say when I was really frustrated or stressed out, and I was like, that doesn't even sound like me. That doesn't sound like how I talk to people. That doesn't sound like the way I talk to people or you know, ever. I don't recognize that. And so, yeah, I just, this last week or so, week and a half, I was just kind of like, I need to be very careful, like, what I'm giving my energy to as far as this case, because what I don't want to do is make the same mistake I did last time, which is jumping right from a lot of heavy stuff in the Laura Owens case, which was the first thing I ever did on YouTube, right, as far as commentary goes, right into this Blake Lively case, which was the second case I've ever really covered on YouTube from start to finish. And in going straight from one thing to the next, I never stopped and slowed down and thought, like, what would I like to do differently, or what do I want to do about, because I've, along the way in doing this, I've had thoughts from time to time that I'm not happy with what I'm doing, and I think that can change, but I never really stopped and took the time to figure out how I'm going to do that, right? So if you want to make a change, if you want to like change what you're doing, you have to change how you're doing it. You can't just be like, okay, well, this needs to, you can't just decide one day it's going to be different. You have to figure out how it's going to be different, right? So I have to sit here and think about like how I want to do things differently, and that I'm like taking enough time for myself so I'm not getting so emotionally invested in silly things like Instagram posts. You know what I mean? Because like I said, a lot of people can handle just like back to back commenting on stuff, and they don't have a problem. But I'm not one of those people. I'm somebody who's very deeply reflective of a lot of things. And I was trying to treat it as if I were somebody who could just be reactive and be fine with that. But my reactive comments sometimes were things that I was not happy with in retrospect. So I think that I've said enough about that. But anyways, I just wanted to point out the internet is still very much like on these people's necks. I've seen that, right? And I follow it a little bit, but I'm not gonna be able to comment on everything. So, especially when it comes to such serious topics like this, with the sexual harassment in the workplace and the comments about abuse that she made in her, what do you call it? Talk show speech or and whatever at the time went uttered. Like, these are really deep topics that I think deserve more reflection on my part and more thoughtfulness. And I was just kind of like, sometimes I would just get so mad and so triggered by some of those things that I would just like, well, I wouldn't say fly off the handle, but maybe a little bit, like verbally. You know what I mean? And I'm somebody whose brain is wired to be very reactive. So it takes me a lot more effort to do that and to keep these things under control than it does for a normal, regularly abled person. Because I'm not, I struggle a lot with things that other people don't struggle with. A normal person wouldn't struggle with, and I've come to accept that. I don't think it makes me a bad person, but I think it makes me someone who needs to put a considerable amount of effort into things so that I don't become kind of a shitty person, to be honest. So yeah. All right. So there is one thing I wanted to go over with you guys as well that kind of goes along this theme of like the internet is still very much going, very critical of Blake while we wait for the ruling on this 47-1 motion and while she tries to kind of make a comeback in the press. And that was this article that I had spoken to a reporter for, and I think she's quoted me in here quite a bit, and I'll go over that with you guys. But some of you may have seen this. It says Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni settled, and the internet is furious. And this reporter, her name is Megan. We talked a couple times. So before the settlement happened, we had like a long chat, and she asked me a lot of questions, and I thought it was a good conversation. And then the settlement happened, and then she talked to me again because the scope of the article was changing. Obviously, there's no more trial, so the angle of her article was changing, and so I answered some different questions. And I want to say that I don't have a problem with this reporter. I'm not trying to attack this reporter or anything like that. The reason I want to talk about this is because I feel like what's quoted for me and probably Cassidy and others in here as well, it doesn't really tell the full story of the conversation that was had for this piece. I felt like it didn't touch on a lot of the stuff that was important to me. And the reason that didn't come out the way that I would be ideal for me is because this is not an article about me, right? This is an article about the internet and the internet's reaction to the settlement. And so this reporter did her job in that she used, like what we said here and there about the settlement and people's reaction to it. It's just like, unfortunately, it's not a feature piece on me or Cassidy or anyone else. So it's not going to show you everything that we said. And so I want to talk a little bit about what I did say that didn't make it into this article. We probably won't read the whole thing word for word. This stream is going to be a little bit shorter tonight just because, like I said, I'm out here and I want to make sure I'm going to bed at a decent hour. I have to work early in the morning, so probably 8:30, 9 o'clock, which is like not early, but you know what I mean. I don't want to be up late. So I want to talk about some of this stuff that didn't make it in here that I thought would have been sort of meaningful to me. But I don't want to attack this reporter. I want everyone to be very clear. Like, Megan was a nice woman, and she, took time to talk to me, and I appreciated that. And I did choose to participate in this. So the scope of the article not covering the things that I wanted it to cover fully, that's not, like, that wasn't her job. Her job was to write on this topic, which was the internet's reaction to the settlement. So this is not in any way like a knock at Megan. So just pointing that out. Give me 1 second. Okay, as you can see, since I'm out of town, I don't have my giant water bottle. Like, what is this? It's a puny little thing. But yeah, okay, so here she mentions Cassidy right at the gate. Says Cassidy O'Connell tried to calm people down. Many of her friends and allies on the internet were furious. They lost their minds, said O'Connell, a YouTuber who makes videos about legal cases. So this quote from Cassidy, I think, and I don't speak for Cassidy entirely, but I will say, from my standpoint, as somebody else who's quoted in this article and had a conversation, a couple conversations related to this article, I think that this doesn't frame the entire the entirety of her sentiment about the settlement. And I know just from knowing Cassidy, from being her friend, that her thoughts about it and her reactions to it are a lot deeper than what's written here. But like I said, this story is not about our depth of emotions and our emotional journey, right? It's about how the internet's reacting to the settlement. So you're not going to capture all that in there. So if you, I don't know if Cassidy has talked about this at all, but if you read this and had any thoughts about what she said, just know that I think this doesn't really quite capture everything, but that's just my thought. So I want to be careful not to make too many assumptions about somebody else's feelings, even though Cassidy is a friend of mine. But okay. And I won't read everything about the backdrop of this lawsuit. We'll read some paragraphs. It was an almighty mess, a tornado of horror and ego, which sucked everything into its path and spat out thousands of pages of text messages, including from the pop star Taylor Swift, audio recordings and camera footage into the public domain. Tens of millions of dollars have been spent in legal fees. Okay. It also spawned its own economy online, as hundreds of content creators on social media made videos about each court hearing and document dump. And the facts became more disputed, the two sides became more entrenched. The vitriol spiraled, but with the unexpected settlement, Team Baldoni and Team Lively have suddenly been made redundant right before their big showdown. And you guys know with this outstanding 47-1 thing, this could be a pretty big deal. It has a lot of implications. I think if he denies it, I think that makes sense. But if he were to grant it, I honestly think that after everything that Blake has done and the way that things have come out and the way she did not want to prove her claims at trial, the way she said she would never stop fighting and then she just suddenly gave up, I think that is going to be, it's going to be some bad publicity for this law. Like a lot of people are going to rally against this law. And I think that the spirit of that law is it's well-meaning and it's meant to protect people who need those protections. But if it's applied in the wrong case, I worry about how that's going to go. And I can't honestly say that it shouldn't be challenged, right? Because this seems to be a potential application of this law that would be unjust, in my opinion. But I don't know what's going to happen there. And, I just think I'm worried about the implications if this law is applied in this case. Let's put it that way. We'll leave it at that. Prickly Pear says, it seemed like this article lacked some of the context that I think y'all probably conveyed. I wouldn't say it was biased, but it felt off. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that she was really biased towards any one way or the other. I think it feels off because this is like a very deep issue for a lot of us who are in this kind of bubble where we've been following this stuff. But most journalists, they're covering this from a perspective of like they're speaking to an audience that's not super familiar with this case, right? They're not speaking to like super followers who have read everything. They're speaking to an audience of casual readers who just want to understand, why am I seeing all these big reactions on the internet, right? So like I said in the beginning, I think she did her job. I just think that I wanted to, for you guys who do watch me and listen to me, I wanted to add some more context. So yeah. Anyways. I was upset. I felt like I wasted a year and a half, said O'Connell, who has almost 20,000 subscribers on YouTube, where she posts pro-Baldoni content. Blake Lively lying for no reason, one video is called. I mean, if she doesn't want people to title videos like that, I'm just saying Blake doesn't want people to title videos like that, then she shouldn't lie for no reason. But okay. After the settlement was announced, O'Connell, who uses an alias for her online persona, went on to X fighting all day with pro-Lively accounts, and then to YouTube, where she tried to reassure pro-Baldoni fans. Some people wanted to close their accounts. Other people gave up on Baldoni and his team, she said. There was a lot of anger. Many of them felt like it wasn't justice fully served, or that Baldoni had buckled. She said, some people wanted to see Lively punished. I just wanted the truth heard in court. Okay, so I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think one thing that I see with content creators who post across multiple types of social media, I think sometimes when they post their opinions, like these kinds of opinions on multiple platforms, I'm not even talking about Cassidy at this point. I'm just talking about in general, a pattern that I've noticed. You don't see some of the angry comments that content is sometimes responding to. So I'm saying, like, sometimes people on YouTube, like, most of my comments come from YouTube, right? Because I barely post on like TikTok and Instagram and stuff like that. I can't keep up with it all. I barely know how to do a TikTok. All right, I look silly most of the time. The thumbnails are all me looking like this. So like it's I try I try not to spend too much time on everywhere because I would just go crazy. But what I'm trying to say is, like, sometimes somebody like me who has most of my audience on YouTube might post something to both YouTube and TikTok and X even. And people on X or TikTok might not see the kinds of crazy comments I might be getting on a YouTube video, which in this case, this is not what's happening right now. You guys are fine. But I'm saying for some people, they might see these kinds of crazy comments, like people fighting all day, or people, feeling very angry or saying like really intense things. And then you might post a video about it on YouTube and people would understand what you're talking about. You might post that same video on TikTok and people would be like, what are you talking about? Why are you complaining? That's not happening, because the people on TikTok don't see the comments that you're responding to. And so that's one thing that I was a little worried about when I saw some of these people quoted in this article. It was like, I think sometimes if you're like somebody who uses both X and YouTube regularly, not everybody's going to know what you're talking about. So a Spotlight Shift says, do you want us to post some crazy stuff for an example? Sure. Entertain me. That's fine. That's fine. But yeah, so I think a lot of the anger, I think there probably would be some people watching this video of me right now, for example, who would not see the same anger that Cassidy was seeing, and they would disagree with what she's saying. But I got to remind people, the internet is a big-ass place, right? There are some places of the internet I won't even go to because I know how scary they are, right? They have weird conspiracy theories about me from people I've never met. But the point is, I hope that nobody's reading these articles like this and like quotes that are taken from longer conversations and just like little bits and pieces picked out and thinking, what is she talking about? She's talking about us. Why is she saying that about us? Because that's probably not what's happening. Like, you might be responding to a DM. You might be responding to a tweet, right? And talking about it on YouTube. So it's just, that was one thing that I had in mind. Hopefully I made sense with that. That was a lot of word salad and not a lot of dressing. So, okay. Let's move on. MJ Morley, 36, is an attorney based in New York State. Her Instagram posts about Baldoni Lively were so popular, her first got 9 million views, that she is now a part-time pro-Lively content creator. She thought things would quiet down after the settlement, but the opposite happened. People online crossed over from being observers of the case to feeling like participants, as if the case belonged to us, she said. Team Lively wanted a conviction, though it was a civil trial, so there would only have been a verdict and potential damages, and Team Baldoni wanted exoneration. And with the settlement, they got neither. So MJ is actually somebody who came up in the conversation when I was talking to Megan. And she actually didn't bring her up. I did. And I'm not sure if MJ talked to Megan before or after me, but Megan asked me some questions about, just like the interaction between the sides of this kind of legal battle and the following of it. And I said, MJ, I see comments about MJ and all those other people on the other side here and there. And I just, to be honest, I'm kind of a live and let live person. So I understand there's going to be people who feel very strongly in the opposite direction of me on things. And I don't necessarily dislike those people. You know what I mean? And so I remember saying to Megan, because she told me about an experience she had at the courthouse when she went to, I think it was Diddy's trial. I was telling her how different it was, like, between online and in person. And I was like, I remember, MJ is not somebody I really interact with online because I don't fight people, right? I don't like to fight people. I just don't interact with people who I just strongly disagree with on the other side. Like I said, I'm a live and let live person for the most part. Now, if somebody antagonizes me or says something outrageously ridiculous and offensive, then I might respond to that. But like, for the most part, I'm just kind of, all right, fine. That's how you feel. That's how you feel. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to say how I feel. And then people can decide for themselves who they, feel like is saying something that resonates with them more. But I told her how different things were online than they were at the courthouse, for example. So I was like, I saw MJ at the courthouse. We had never met, and she was very polite. There was no sort of like bad feelings there, you know what I mean? Whereas online, you see people like going at each other's throats. And I'm kind of like, I was a little scared, to be honest, going to the courthouse that day because of how crazy things are online. But even people who, feel very differently than me about this case, they were perfectly polite to me. And that was kind of a relief, to be honest. But yeah, because there are crazy people out there, like the random Hollywood lady who called my phone. But there are, they're like, for the most part, I think people, when you see each other in person, having a sense of civility there and just like an understanding that people are allowed to feel the way they feel and coexist in a space, I appreciated that. So, Jennifer Cottrell says, sort of related, when I first found you, I couldn't figure out why you were so angry about Laura Owens. It wasn't until I caught Love Trapped that I realized what you had been through, the whole picture. Yeah, I mean, Love Trapped, I love the podcast. It does a great job of telling the story. I will try to maybe do a little bit to supplement my perspective there, because this was not a story about me, obviously, but I was in that podcast. If you guys haven't heard Love Trapped, absolutely should listen to it so you know about the other crazy case I'm talking about. It will be one of the craziest things you have ever heard. I can promise you that. But with Laura, yeah, I was very, very angry because I started out very understanding, very diplomatic almost, and just trying to approach it respectfully while also, sharing my opinion. So like every now and then I would say like, yeah, this person's being an asshole, but I wouldn't say anything crazy, And then as Laura and her attorney David started to like threaten me and threaten my loved ones over and over and over and like do crazy manipulative things behind the scenes, that's when you would see me kind of devolve into just like saying like weird creative insults all the time. And instead of offering opinions of substance, just like swearing and not lashing out, but like venting basically. My YouTube channel became like a diary. It was like a video diary. It was no longer me trying to say anything important. It was just me venting into my video diary. And that's kind of how I felt about this case. So, yeah. But anyways, that's not important right now. But just wanted to point that out. But if anybody has not heard Love Trapped yet, you definitely should, because I'm going to talk some more about that case for sure. All right. Moving on. Let's see. Although a court date had been set, much of the battle between the two sides had already been waged online by and between fans and self-styled sleuths who set about picking the case apart. The vitriol on social media also became part of the legal case itself, with comparisons drawn between the attacks on Lively and the attacks suffered by Amber Heard during the U.S. defamation case brought by her ex-husband Johnny Depp over claims about domestic violence in their relationship. Okay. And then MJ is quoted here saying, celebrities have to know that they are doing more than just surviving a lawsuit. They have to survive the internet, which I think is actually that's true. It's a good point. Let's see. I don't want to like go through this stuff about the complaint too much because we've all read them, but there's they put some of the ridiculous stuff in here where she said that she was getting descriptions of their genitalia, stuff like that. Okay. Which did not happen, by the way. This talks about some of the text messages. Okay. In January 2025, Baldoni, his studio and publicist, sued Lively and Reynolds for $400 million. His supporters... Oh, okay. Hang on. On February 1st, his legal team launched the website, which his supporters began referring to as the Great Unsealing. So that's not actually what that was. Unfortunately, I think the reporter got that wrong. We know the Great Unsealing refers to the documents that came out that showed all those crazy celebrity texts and other documents that came out just before the January... Was it 22nd or 21st? The January hearing. So she got that one a little off. But there's a lot to take in here, guys. So I think that's okay. Anyways, so like anyone who jumps into this and tries to write about it in retrospect, who hasn't been like following the whole thing, is going to get, you know, a couple things wrong here or there. And I understand that. That's fine. Let's see. So they're talking about the website as the Great Unsealing, which I don't agree with. Obviously, that's not what the Great Unsealing was. I don't even call it the Great Unsealing. Those aren't words that I don't think I've ever used those words. I've seen plenty of other people do it, but yeah. Okay. Disputing Lively's claims and providing explanations for each scenario, including that he talked about genitalia after Lively had brought up circumcising her son. Yeah, so that was one of the things that we talked about. Then they mentioned me here. Lauren, 33, lives in Jacksonville, has a YouTube channel, acquired almost entirely through the course of this case. So, I mean, that's mostly true. I will say this. The crazy thing about this is, like, if you look at my YouTube channel and you go to my videos and you look at the most viewed videos I have, which are the ones I've gotten the most subscribers from, they're like Afro Man videos. So like my Afro Man videos got more views and subscribers than anything I've done in this case, which is kind of crazy. Except for, I think, one stream, live stream that I did in this case got more views than any of those Afro Man, 2 of those Afro Man videos, which were the most viewed things I've ever done. And I loved those Afro Man videos because that case was hilarious. And I would love to do more stuff like that, but you don't see a case like that very often, right? So it's kind of funny that, you know, you would think like all the time I spent talking about this case and like all I had to do was talk about a couple Afro Man videos, you know, talk about a couple Afro Man things. And I was like way more successful just like having fun with that, which was actually kind of a light at the end of the tunnel for me, because I'm like, I can do something lighthearted and more fun later on, and I'm going to be fine. I don't have to talk about cases that are so triggering all the time. But yeah, I came here from Andy. Oh, cool. Hi, Carol. What's up? How's it going? Okay, anyways. She said that many on Team Baldoni, including herself, were radicalized by the Great Unsealing. So radicalized, not a word that I think I used. I understand what she's trying to say, though, and I think that I'm not really bothered by what she wrote here. It seemed to me that she's quoting me here, it seemed to me that Lively wasn't being totally honest. She said there was a shift. Yes. So that is a very small quote of a very large conversation, but accurate. Yes, accurate to what I said. The more Neidigh engaged with pro-Baldoni content, the more she saw. Soon she was spending 30 hours a week trawling through documents released to the court, making up to $5,000 a month from views on her videos, supplementing her job in healthcare. So if I had a problem with anything in this article, like a real problem, it would probably be this. So this is what I hate. I was asked questions about my income. And while I'm not comfortable like giving strangers a total deep dive into my finances, so I don't, and I also just like don't talk about money that much on this channel unless it's directly relevant to the situation, because I feel like it's tacky to like talk about money all the time. I was asked questions about my income, and so I wanted to answer them because I wanted to give people an honest look at what somebody with like a moderate sized channel, which I think I'm not like the smallest or the biggest channel, right? But what somebody with like a modest sized channel could make. And so what I told her was, on average, I will make like $2,000 to $2,500 without taking out taxes. So when I get that money, the first thing I have to do is take out taxes. So I'm not like sitting here raking in $5,000 every month. Okay. I would love to be raking in $5,000 every month. I think that would be fantastic. But normally, let's put it this way. When we talked on the phone, I told her, I was like, last month I got $1,900, and that's before tax. And then this month, at the time, I was like, I got $2,500, and that's before tax. But I was honest with her. I was like, it's possible to get more money than that. At one point in time, I had lightning strike to where the 2 cases that I have been following closely, that like pretty much all of my following at that point were from those 2 cases. And this was probably close to when Laura was indicted the first time, because we had all this Baldoni Lively stuff going on, and then Laura Owens gets charged with felonies. And so all of a sudden, like, I was streaming and making videos all like a lot, right? And I was just working and working and working. I feel like if I wasn't working my regular job, I was doing YouTube, and I was not healthy. It was not sustainable. And I did it because I was like, this isn't going to last forever. And I want to, give my all to this stuff that I do deeply care about, these two cases. And so I started to put a lot of work in. And I was at that point probably putting in about 30 hours a week. I was probably, that month that I did make that much money, I probably did put in somewhere between 100 and 120 hours of work into YouTube. But that's not possible for me to do all the time, because I wasn't sleeping enough. I was, foregoing spending time with my family. I wasn't taking care of my health. And like, I'm not the healthiest person in the world anyways, but like, I wasn't doing a lot of the things that I'm doing now that I really need to do. And it's like, I would, if this were my full-time job, absolutely, I could spend 30 hours a week doing that, right? That's not even a full-time job hours. And I would probably make decent money. But the thing is, like, even if you're a full-time content creator and you're making that kind of money a month, all of a sudden it's like I would have to pay out of pocket for health insurance every month. And also what the health insurance doesn't cover when I go to the doctor. I got some pretty, it's personal. I don't like to talk about this stuff because I do keep some things private, even though I'm a pretty open person. Back in like October, November, I got some pretty big, it was bad news health wise. And so I've had to do things a lot differently since then. And so that would be a problem. So I was like, yeah, you can make that much money, like if you're putting in that much work, but that was the most money I ever made. And I told her, I was like, that's not the norm. Right. And so I'm sitting here reading this article and I'm like, that's not an accurate picture of my life. So yeah, that was like, I was okay. She makes it sound like I'm still doing 30 hours a week and have been this whole time and still make that much money. I don't love that, right? I don't love that. And no, I did not take out the business costs, like the pacer costs and travel costs and stuff like that. Like, so there were expenses you would have to pay that I did not factor in. But I was just trying to be, like transparent, because I know people have questions about how much money you can make outside of, what people say on Reddit, which is obviously not true. I had some weird radical people on Reddit saying I was making $1,000 per live stream. I don't think I've ever made half of that on a live stream, even on my best day. But, So I think that this was like a sexy way to put it for people who are reading the article. They might think, oh my God, you can just go on the internet and talk about stuff and make $5,000. And that's not the truth. Well, if you have a much larger following and you don't have to spend as much time as I did to make that kind of money, maybe, yeah. I'm sure, like, if you have like a channel with hundreds of thousands of followers, then yeah, that might be pretty normal, right? But for me, no. Definitely not. Yeah. So, like I told her, like, the month before, when I had gotten paid, the last paycheck I got when I was talking to her was $1,900, which is less than half of what she wrote here. And then the paycheck that I was expecting for that month was $2,500, which is half of that. So I don't love that, but again, like, she did her job, which as a journalist, which was to dress this up in a way that was, like, it sells like a sexy article where you're like, oh my gosh, people online are crazy and they're making this kind of money. Like, no, that's not exactly what we discussed, but it's technically true. What she wrote is technically true, because I did make up to $5,000 a month. And at one point in time, I was doing 30 hours a week of editing, recording, live streaming, and all that stuff. But, I feel like that's my going out of my comfort zone to answer that question, the purpose of me doing that was to give people an honest picture of like what people can make with a smaller size channel compared to a lot of the people you see being discussed in the news. Let's put it that way. I wanted to give people a realistic picture of that. And then she didn't include the picture. So I like went out of my way to answer this question that I wasn't totally comfortable with in order to, you know, give people an actual look at this. And then that just like they totally did not include that. So I was like, that sucks. But, you know, it is what it is. I can't do anything about it. So give me 1 second. A journalist's job is to report the truth, not make it sexy. I don't know, man. I only read Glamour magazine, so you know me. I'm a glamour girl. So yeah, no, I know. It's a little frustrating, but I'm trying not to be too I'm not like outraged. You know what I mean? I'm a little disappointed, but I'm not outraged. So all right. Okay. On one occasion, she went to a hearing at the New York courtroom. One of Baldoni's attorneys said hello to her in the corridor and without prompting gave her commiserations to her American football team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, who had just lost in the playoffs. He must, she deduced, recognize her from her videos. So that was Kevin. Kevin and I met at the courthouse. We kind of like made eye contact. You guys probably heard this from my interview with him. We made eye contact and I was just like, I don't know if I can be seen like waving or talking at this person, or her attorneys might accuse him of something. So I just kind of looked at him and I gave him one of those. Like, hold on. This is what happened. You guys are Kevin Fritz. This is me in the courthouse. Like, it was the most awkward, like, and he just gave me a nod back and I was like, okay, we're good. But I really didn't want to get him in any trouble or anything like that, because even being friendly with people could have gotten them in trouble at some point, because her attorneys were just letting her wreak havoc on everyone's lives. It was insane. So yeah. But he was a nice guy. And so I did run into him, at some point after, I think it was after the hearing, like it was over and we were about to walk out. And he, said hi, we shook hands, and he said something about the Jags in the playoffs, because I had posted about it. So, whatever. It's no big deal. Let's see. But yeah, I was being somebody who was subpoenaed at that hearing. I did not want to get anyone in trouble. So I didn't even say hi to Brian Friedman. I was just like, if these people see me saying hi to Brian Friedman, they're going to start a conspiracy and say I have known him for my entire life and he's my granddad or something. Like, I don't know. Like, that might be overdoing it a little bit. But, like, honestly, that was insane. I was like, I honestly, like, I just didn't want them to get in trouble. So I really avoided them for the most part. Not because I didn't want to talk to them. I totally did. But her attorneys had, like, made me a pariah with a fucking subpoena. And so I was like, I gotta do what's best for everybody here and just kind of, unfortunately, isolate myself from those people, even though I want to talk to them. And that's part of what's so evil about what she did. Is like they try to isolate and ostracize people who don't deserve it, and like turn every little thing into a conspiracy because they don't have a real case, in my opinion. But yeah. Anyways, whenever documents were unsealed, people were like, we want answers, she said. I couldn't keep up with all the material at one point, and when it slows down, people started analyzing in the weeds of it all. It's crazy. Yes, so that is accurate. There was a time, I think, it was probably in January, where it was like, it honestly got to be too much. I had looked at every single document, until those huge summary judgment motions and all that. the unsealed versions of all that came out. And I was like, there is absolutely no way I can go over every single one of these documents on the internet. I'll have an aneurysm. Like it couldn't happen. And so I would see people like going into the weeds on it, and I would look at their analysis. And it was interesting, but I was like, some of that stuff I just had to like, I went through it all, but I had to just like do it in my free time in the quiet where I didn't have to record myself talking about it. It was like finally after like a year of me dedicating all this time, I was like, it's finally too much. I just couldn't do it. So yeah, Bocce did. I know Bocce did. Bocce was a trooper, man. All right. In June 2025, Baldoni's case against Lively and Reynolds was struck. Okay, and then she talks about April 2026, Lyman tossed out 10 of Lively's claims. And then here they talk about Neidigh had booked her flights and hotel in New York when she found out the parties had settled. She couldn't get a refund on $1,500 of her hotel booking, so she will be visiting New York from Florida for 1 week. Anyways, here I am. That is what we discussed, yes. Let's see. A lot of people who have been spectating wanted a concrete ending, a dramatic conclusion, she said, but it hasn't reached a resolution. And I think that is what I said. That's accurate. Right. And then she talks about the settlement and the statement they put out. They quote Katie here. Okay, this is a stupid thing that I should know, right? Does she go just by Katie? Because I've always called her Katie Joy. Is it Katie Joy? Or can somebody tell me, is it Katie Joy or Katie? Because I have literally just always called her Katie Joy. Anyways, Katie Paulson from Minnesota calls herself a mommy sleuth with 185,000 followers on Instagram and 500,000 on YouTube. Making online content is a full-time job. Her videos on the case include Blake Lively destroyed in court, Wayfarer exposes embarrassing settlement terms to the judge. Well, if you're going to like feature Katie Joy in here, why don't you put the Van Zandt thing here? Is my question. I understand, again, this is like an eye-grabbing headline, but that was a huge milestone in the case. Well, it was a huge milestone for people following it. Maybe not for the people, working on trying the case, but for people following the case, that was a huge milestone. So why not use that, I would think. So I think people call her Katie Joy to separate her from Katie Inc. and Katie. Okay. That kind of makes sense for me. Okay. All right. She feels that Lively was lying about her claims of sexual harassment and in doing so derailed real victims from being believed. Fair. A lot of people truly believe the only way Baldoni could be exonerated was if a jury found him not liable, she said. A lot of his supporters feel directionless now. They wanted the Amber Heard moment, referring to how the jury in the Heard defamation trial found in his favor. They wanted those sound bites. This kind of makes sense, though, feeling directionless when you don't get a firm conclusion to the thing you've been following this whole time. You know what I mean? So yeah. But that was the whole article. I just wanted to give you guys some more insight into what actually was said there. Also, we talked before the settlement happened, and the article was going to be a little bit different. We talked a lot about why the internet had such huge reactions to this, and I felt like we had a talk about how this was so gripping to a lot of people because it's a triggering issue for a lot of people. Sexual harassment, sexual assault, that kind of thing. Like, that's a triggering issue for a lot of people. Even if not to you directly, then a lot of people have family members, friends, and some kind of loved one that's been affected by that, right? And I feel like that drew people in. That's something that you feel really strongly about. You don't want the wrong outcome for something that important to so many people. And that's one reason I felt like it was so gripping to people. And the other was that it had the celebrity factor, and that was a huge combination for a lot of people. And so it obviously drew a lot of attention, sustained attention over time. And I feel like the conflict itself between internet commenters who were pro-Lively or pro-Baldoni, like, I feel like that conflict itself, like you see with a lot of social media things, with politics related stuff especially, right, drives engagement, and then drives posts about it, articles about it, videos, whatever, to the top of people's feeds because it's such a hotly contested issue. But yeah, so it had just like a huge following. So I was like, I know there's this whole smear campaign accusation of boosting or whatever, and I don't know if people boosted negative articles about Blake Lively or not. Frankly, I don't care because they were true things, so I don't really care if you boost a true thing. But I don't think they had to do all that much because the conflict and the huge emotional impact on people that this case brought, I think that drove a lot of engagement alone by itself. I think it took on a life of its own. I really do. No doubt there's, PR input and publicists doing stuff behind the scenes, but I do think that just the issues themselves and the fact that celebrities were involved, like that all kind of stands on its own. So, let me see here. Ricardo Holt, thank you for the $2. Hello, Miss Lauren and Lovelies. Hi, how are you doing? They underestimated the public and the internet. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Well, I don't know if I'll stream again tomorrow. If I do, it'll be at night. It'll be around this time again tomorrow night, like 9:30 or something. But it might be Saturday next time I'm back. So yeah, unless we get some news or something tomorrow, or maybe something on Laura Owens tomorrow because there was some news on that this week. We can't see the article anymore. Yeah, I read all of it, so or I got to the end of it, so I didn't want to have it up anymore. But yeah. Anyways, I just wanted to go through that with you guys and to just touch base. I am here in New York, yes, but I couldn't take my vacation time because I need to save my vacation time for when I'm back for the other case. So that is why I have not had as much time to stream while I'm out here. I did get half that day off on Monday, but I am unfortunately during the week I've been sitting in the hotel working. So yeah. Anyways, that's all I got for tonight, guys. Thanks for watching. If you missed it in the beginning, go back and listen to what Joe and I got to do for fun on Monday. We got to go to a cool film, and you guys can hear about that. But yeah, see you in August. Yes, I will be back. So, all right. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Don't forget to hit the like button for me. I forgot to ask because it helps me a lot. So, okay. Now, bye. Bye. I'm going to bed.